Section 3. Guessing Game. This is a section in which you will learn how to create a guessing game which has intelligence. We will build in such a way that it keeps improving on every conversation it has with the user. In the second part of this section, you will learn to access external APIs to access any data available over the internet. Creating a guessing game. In this lecture, you will learn how to create a guessing game that throws questions at the user based on their answers to the previous questions. We will do this to know how push function works and how we can use it in our projects to upload data to the database. At the end of this project, you will also have a very good appreciation for context. Now, if you had been surfing through the internet about Google Actions, you would have come across the CodeLab sample of the guessing game. Though it showcases precisely how to build your first app, it doesn't explain the fulfillment codes involved in it, and also many other conceptual kinds of stuff, which will help us in creating our own applications. We will do something similar to it with a complete understanding of what is happening inside. In this project, we will also code our Google Assistant to learn by itself. Yeah, we will give it intelligence. Though at a very minimal level, it is still intelligence. I will give the outline of the whole project we will make shortly. The flow must be like this. When the user is ready to play with something on his mind, our application will try to guess that thing by asking a series of questions. These questions will be mapped to one another in our database. And once we have asked enough questions, and if the action still couldn't find that thing, then it will ask for the user a suggestion on how to guess the thing he had in mind. This suggestion will be taken back to the database and added to the question arsenal we already have, and the next time this question will be added to the guessing question series. This way, the application keeps learning whenever it couldn't get the right guess. That's about it. Let's jump into making of our project. I will use a different agent for my intents and webhook functions. Let's start fresh, since this action itself would have too many intents and functions in it. First of all, we will have an intent, which tells the user about the game and asks them if they are willing to start. I will also make this the default welcome intent. Now, if the user says yes, then we will start our first question of our series of questions. And if he says no, then we will finish off our action with a farewell response. We will create two intents for these purposes. And name them accordingly. In the yes part, I will give an action name and also will enable the webhook. In the other part, a simple response right on Dialogflow will do. Now, to start asking the question, I must initially have some. I have created this JSON file for this purpose. As you can see, I have created a few questions. The main thing to note here is the link. The flow is like this. If the user says yes, on the first question, we will move to the key inside Y. If not, we will move inside key position from n, and it will go on like this. You can easily get these keys using the npm module Firebase key. Install it, run the function, and it will give you unique keys every time, which you can use here. I have uploaded these files into the resources section for you guys to download. If you want to use mine for now, import this JSON into the Firebase database. Once we have the sample database ready, we can start by asking the question from our webhook. The first step is to move into the Firebase database JSON so that we can access the questions. As we did in our earlier project, we will use the ref and child functions of the Firebase database library and move into the question answer branch of the database. Once we are there, we can move into the function of our start game intent from Dialogflow, which has the action name of game.start. Inside the function, we will have to ask our first question, for which we will need the key of the JSON branch holding our first question, and then using that key we can get the question out of it. Save the key in a variable, and as before we are using that key to move into the child of branch question answer, and then using once function with the event type as value from the callback function, the question is obtained, appended with the assistant's reply and sent back to the user. Let's deploy an inside Dialogflow. When we invoke it, we get back the question from the database. It has been nice and easy till now. The next set of yes or no answers. Since we already have a yes or no condition, we will bring in the context into play. Inside Dialogflow, we will set an output context with a lifetime of 1 for the default welcome intent, and then set the same as the input context for the following yes and no intent. Create the follow-up intents for the start game with action names and fulfillment enabled. If the user says yes, the conversation will lead to an answer. If not, it will move to the next question. This also needs an output context set from start game intent, which can be set from the webhook itself using the function setContext. It has one more useful functionality that will be necessary shortly. For both of the above functions, we will need the key to the previous question that was asked. Here, the phi is the lifetime of the context across the intents. The context that is moving from one intent to another in Dialogflow can take JSON parameters along with them, and using which the key will be transferred from the start intent to the answer yes or no intent. So in this case, using the setContext function, the key will be taken wherever the corresponding context goes. In our webhook, both the yes and no action names are mapped to the same function in the action map. Once inside the function, the previous question's key is retrieved using the getContext argument function, in which the context name and the JSON parameter specific name is set as parameters. Here the value is taken out and stored inside the constant prev key. To know which intent is invocated, since both the intents are mapped to the same function, the getIntent function is used, and the action name is saved in action variable. Using the if-else conditional, the variable sNo is set with either the character y or n to be used to get data from the database. Then, as before, move into the JSON branch using the once function. Now, this value contains the whole JSON branch, but what is required is the question directing key or the answer directing one, which is obtained and stored in the variable next. Using the once function again and moving into the next key point of the database, get the whole JSON out and save it out in a constant choice. Now, using the if conditional, we check whether the JSON has a question, as this will tell us when to stop. You would have noticed the last guess is the Albert Einstein, and the program needs to know when we reach that point. If a question is present, then retrieve the question and use it as our response. Again, the parameter has to be set inside the context with the new key in it. Now, inside else, if it is an answer key, then the process is similar with the only change with the output context, which is set as guess here, and no parameters required here, as there are only two options from here. The user might say yes or no. Either case, a simple response will do. Let's make that inside Dialogflow. Deploy and move to Dialogflow. As you can see, the game is working well and good. Let's move to the most exciting part of the project, which allows the action to learn. Summary: in this lecture, we learn how to create a guessing game using Google Assistant. In the next lecture, we will impart intelligence to our action, which will help it to learn with every wrong guess.